So this is teaching for women. So if you are a person who believes in preterism, that we're in the new covenant, all has been fulfilled, you need to go read Jeremiah 23. End time prophecy. It speaks of another Exodus, so much greater that the people won't even mention the first Exodus anymore. What all the churches are preaching today, when Moses brought the people out of Egypt, when the Red Sea split in half, when Jehovah brought his people out of Egypt into the wilderness for 40 years, they won't even be that there's going to be another Exodus so much greater they won't even mention the first one anymore. So if we are in the new covenant and all has been fulfilled, where in time did this second Exodus occur, and why are we still talking about the first Exodus, and how come nobody and none of the churches know that there's a second Exodus? And it tells you that the pastors are lying and they're prophesying in the name Baal. What name are the pastors prophesying and pushing to the four corners of the world? Isn't that Jesus Horish Krishna, Jesus H. Christ? The one who came in his own name in John 5:42 and 43, that the people will receive because they don't have the love of God in them, 1 John 5. And Jeremiah 23, the pastors that are lying, prophesying in the name Baal, they dream and they dream and they tell everyone and their neighbors so that they forget, so that their fathers forget Jehovah's name for the name Baal, and they say burden of the Lord. Burden of the Lord, burden of the Lord. You're not to say burden of the Lord. What is burden of the Lord? 1 John chapter 5 verse 3, for this is the love of God, to keep his commandments, and they're not burdensome. But the pastors say burden of the Lord. The commandments are burdensome. No man can keep them. Jehovah says, thou shalt not say burden of the Lord 8 times, for every man's word will be his burden, and he will utterly punish them in their household who say burden of the Lord. Second Exodus, and the pastors are lying, saying burden of the Lord, prophesying in the name Baal. So when has that occurred? When did the second Exodus occur? And why is this church still talking about the first Exodus? And why do the pastors still say burden of the Lord? The commandments are burdensome. Because in the new covenant in Jeremiah chapter 30 and 31 and Hebrews chapter 8, the covenants, Jehovah's eternal covenants, will be written on their hearts and in their minds, and all will know him. In 1 John chapter 2 verse 3 and 4, this is how we know him, when we keep his commandments. And him who says he knows him and keeps not his commandments are liars, and the truth is not in them. That's how you know him. What church is keeping the 10 commandments? What church is keeping the Sabbath day as Jehovah commanded to keep it in Deuteronomy 5? It instructs you to keep it as Jehovah has commanded you to keep it. What pastor is not turning the grace of God into lasciviousness, something filthy that you can sin and gain favor and be shameless in it? Saying burden of the Lord. No man can keep the commandments. So we're saved by Jude 1, lasciviousness. What pastor is teaching Titus 2, the grace of God that has appeared to all men will teach them to deny ungodliness, sin, breaking of the covenant, the 10 commandments, and worldly lust, your fleshly lusts, so you can live soberly and be righteous. Walk in righteousness, the commandments of God. What Jehovah defined as his righteousness in Psalms 119, verse 172, and Deuteronomy chapter 6. What Yeshua said will be your righteousness if you love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Aren't they still saying burden of the Lord? No man can keep the commandments. They're burdensome. Isn't the churches the modern day Pharisees in Matthew 15 and Mark 7? Breaking Jehovah's commandments by their traditions of men? Still flattering Jehovah with their mouth, but their heart is far from them. Deuteronomy 6, because they don't have the commandments written on their hearts. From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. They say that they're in the new covenants, where the covenant is written on their hearts, Jehovah's law. But they're lawless. They say we're not under the law, but supposedly the law is written on their hearts, but they're not under the law. Hypocrisy. Don't fall for preterism. It's the dumbest doctrine, the most easily disproved doctrine out of all the apostate doctrines. All you have to do is open your book and read the scripture to know that that is not true at all. It says that the redeemed of the Lord, the 144,000, will rule with Yeshua for 1,000 years on earth. Where is the 144,000? Where's Yeshua? When did Yeshua return and stand on the Mount Olives where it split in half? Go Google the Mount of Olives. The graves of the Jewish people are still scattered all over the Mount Olives. It's intact. It's not split in half. Where is 144? Where's Yeshua, who will reign for 1,000 years? And it will be peace. No, they won't learn war anymore. Where in time has there been no war for 1,000 years? Where in history? Because our history books tell us there hasn't been peace for 1,000 years. There's been war after war after war after war. It's utterly dumb. So don't fall for it. You're not in the new covenant yet. The house of Judah and the house of Israel have not become one. They're still divided. They still despise each other. Judah still denies Yeshua. So don't fall for it.